Welcome to another post-midnight 1:17 a.m. session, and this might be one of the best videos, besides the sales ones, of this entire training module for speakers, and this one is going to focus on. This is pretty much the in-person events playbook. The entire step-by-step process, picking the venue, getting the speakers, how to fulfill, how to run, how to organize, cadences, staff, clearances, like everything. And I've made a booklet or like more of a guidance checklist and sheet with all of these notes as well, which is just like text right now, but I'll try to make it better and more visually appealing later. Um, but yeah, this is gonna be like one of the best videos, and within this first chapter of the fulfillment aspect, we are gonna focus on picking the venue as well as hiring speakers, both headliners as well as sales speakers, MCs, as well as just overall general notes and tips that would make life a lot more easier. And this is mainly for the one-to-many events in which you also sell. This is the same structure and strategy that you can use to run those like 500, 1,000, 5,000 person events, right? Most of the big events that you see are based off this structure and strategy. So I'm literally sharing the behind the scenes and sharing the steps and everything. And um, I just compiled this recently, reflecting back on everything that I've learned, and as well as the latest, like looking back and spending the last few weeks researching on some other uh, successful events and industry insights, and just all the notes that this is. I haven't found this taught anywhere, even in speaking programs. Like most people end at closing or webinar running or something like that, but this is probably gonna make your life so much easier because most people make mistakes in areas like these, and hopefully with this checklist, I can ensure that you don't make any of them. Without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing is the venue selection, right? You've decided the name of your event, you've planned the offer, you have the concept for it, you know what you're gonna do, how you're gonna market it, all of those things, right? So so now you wanna pick a venue. And on that note, what like you can start marketing a waitlist funnel with a approx date beforehand and reveal the exact date later on. That's perfectly fine as well. Once you finalize the venue, it works both ways. So for the venue's location is the most important thing because if it's in a central area that is easily accessible, your show up rates will be much higher. We have made this mistake before, and this applies just as much for small scale events. Like if they're really small, like 50 people or 30 people, then I might consider this as an exception. But this is more so for the larger ones, like 200 to plus all the way to 5,000 people events, which is like the location. Well, for really large ones, there will only be two, three places in the whole city, like the convention centers that can accommodate like 3,000 plus people. But for 500 to 1,000 ones, you'll find a lot. For 200 to 600, there are plenty. There should be most hotel rooms should have their ballrooms, which will allow you to do that. Now, here's what happens. Um, in the past, I've seen really large events, and generally the central venues are expensive. This is the reason why people try to avoid the main big venues like convention centers or places like that, because it's like probably for really large ones, it might end up being $50,000 more. But you might get like 10-15% more show up rates by picking a good venue with parking and everything around it so that people don't need to drive around and then walk around and have a headache finding the place, right? And they can just take public transport and come to your location. Just makes life much easier for everyone involved. Yet on the other hand, I've seen people who've picked like showgrounds or places that are outside the city center, and like it just kills the show up rates. Like people come in and leave because they can't find the place. I've literally had that happen. People are not going to call you, or if you're running a large event, you might have customer support, but most people would be focused on other things besides finding the place, right? So just make it as easy as possible for them. Now, in the central areas, most, if it's 200 to 500 people size event, like you can pick most hotels like Hilton, Sofitel, Marriott, like most of these, the star stuff like that. Um, Across the world, like I'm assuming this is mainly this playbook or these examples are mainly for uh, most Western countries like UK, USA, Canada, like most places. You'd have these big events. They should have their own grand ballrooms and places inside, and you can pick the one that suits you. It would be expensive, but you lose more money by not picking them. Learn this lesson. I learned this lesson the hard way. So we learned this lesson the hard way. So take my advice on that, right? Now, once you have like, I'll share my screen in a second and show you guys what to do. Now, once you've selected the venue, if it's like a small sized event, you don't, for like most would try to add extra stuff, and you can definitely negotiate. The cheapest rate you get, take that and mention that to the other party and tell them that this is the rate I got from this person. Can you guys match that, or can you give us a better deal? And most would be more than happy to give a better deal. So you'd be surprised. People will start at like 18,000 and they'll come all the way down to 12,000. And that has happened so many times for like a 300 person room theater style. Um, which brings me to the next thing. Most of you, considering these are paid or free events, but they're more so like where you're speaking from stage, you want to make it theater style so you can accommodate maximum audience while they're not standing or anything like that. Most events where people are just sitting is called a theater style seating. Let me share my screen. Give me a second. So what happens is your biggest expense is going to be like this thing and then your AV after that. So share, and then let's go back over here. And over here, we can just search theater style seating. This is called theater style. So literally there is a stage and there are seats next to it in rows. That's how theater style works, right? Um, Again, most events like Hilton, sorry, not solo leveling, dude. Hilton, venue, hire, and you can just contact their team. You might even get all of these others, the star, for example. Um, and then just contact them and then get them to book in a room like for these conferences and meetings. You can do boardrooms as well for the smaller ones, so like just scale down everything that I'm telling you guys about. But besides that, like you should be fine. Like these are the sort of the rooms that uh, you can pretty much use pretty easily for your small events, and the large ones, generally convention centers, are the best place for that. Um, so that's with the venue, right? These are for the in-person ones. The in-person ones are slightly expensive, but you close more sales and you give a more immersive experience and you overall get better results. And the venue you pick would already be used to it and they would be experienced. So definitely helps. Like I've seen people try to cut corners on venue location and then make mistakes. Anyways, moving to the next thing or the next most exciting thing after venue is hiring your sales speakers or sorry, getting your speakers. Let's start with the headliners first, all right? So, um, the thing with headliners is that you want to pick some people overcomplicate how easy it is to get somebody good to work. Like they think they're going to charge. Some people either overestimate or underestimate their two extremes. That's because it works both ways. There are speakers who are really famous, like these big coaches like Gary Vee and people like that. And they're always in demand and they might be like 250K or something like that, right? Um, and yeah, that's expensive. Yet there are many of them that might not be as famous, and all of them don't get as many bookings, so they're like on the lower end. So it's like you get two extremes when booking speakers. So you will get people that are like in the affordable category, which is like 10 to 40,000, and then you have like 250K, like 150K, 200K, like those zones. And generally they fit in these two aspects. Plus, if you book for multiple events, if you're doing a four-city tour, you can make it cheaper, right? But my tip here for selection, the right speaker will cover their own cost. Very important lesson. Your ad spend, if you're going to spend $30,000 in marketing to fill a 500-person free event, getting somebody who's influential enough and spending $20,000 on getting them in can lower your ad spend to 10,000 to get the same number of regos, and you might attract people who are more inclined with the product and the message because some people wouldn't come to see you, they would only come to see that headliner. And most like good successful level celebrities, you can get them at like 20,000 ballpark. Like if it's business, then you'll get like the Shark Tank guys, or if it's health or wellness, you'll get like some of those big name influencers in 10 to 20K ballpark. Like you'll get most of them around this 20 to 30 as well, sometimes if they're more influential and famous. But here are the things you need to look for. They need to be in line with your industry. Don't, for example, don't bring a comedian to a bloody business conference, or don't bring an actor to a business conference. At least don't make them the main headliner. Because guess what will happen? The people who'll come to see that person when they're on your ads would think it's a bloody comedy show. And I've seen people do that. Like they bring like a wellness expert, um, or a health or a medicine expert, and the event is business oriented, or they do like bring like Instagram influencer. All right, this is like the weird thing because she has a large following, but that following just follows her because she looks good, and they don't really spend any money. And she can't get ticket sales either. So they bring somebody like that to an event, and then again, no sales. Because the reason you're getting an influencer is either because you look up to the person like that and you wanna make it memorable, and that's for like generally those people are so if you know somebody who is that good genuinely, you can bring them in, but then you'll have to make up if they can't pull in an audience by your own skill set. But the other is if you're bringing a speaker from a strategic perspective of enhancing ticket sales, lowering your cost per lead, and attracting qualified buyers that otherwise wouldn't come, you need to pick the right person. Otherwise, there's no point. Like literally, I've seen people waste so much money on, and this is the other thing I've seen this happen a few times where they would pick five average speakers because they're like they think like, oh, if I spend less and just get more people, that will have an overall same effect. It doesn't. Most people wouldn't like the attention and the value um, disparity is like so high that most people wouldn't come for somebody who they don't think is who has the pull. Right. I mean, for free when it works. For paid, I mean, this was a paid event example. Like somebody, I knew a person or like an event that I have seen were trying to sell $300 tickets to all the way to $3,000 tickets, but they didn't have one large scale headliner of it, right? And the pull wasn't there, whereas another event was able to just easily run through it because like they didn't have five different people, but they had one really successful person that was able to just make it up for that. But anyway, so that's the first thing. Um, and you can hire most of these just by searching them online. So let me share my screen again. Like most speaker bureaus will connect you with the right people, and if you're starting out, do like some normal event first, small level ones to build your authority before leading into a large one. You can't directly jump into like a 5,000 person event. So if I search like Gary V speaker booking, right? Literally CAA, Creative Artist Agency or Key Speaker Bureau, like most of these people, you just literally like this is it. This is literally it. You click on check availability and they will ask you to fill out a form, and then their agent will contact you, and you just negotiate with them, and the person or whoever these guys get paid for helping you book the person. So they will talk to Gary's agent and they get whatever fee or something. And if you want to compare, you could try doing this with um, like the first top three agencies. Honestly, I will just contact Winner Speakers because that's directly Gary Vee and his website, so that's probably the best place. But you get the point, right? So this is how you, but again, if you don't want somebody who is this big, then let's just go with Key Speakers Bureau. And then let's go to speakers by topic and let's select business. And then you'll get all of these business speakers, Kevin O'Leary or any of these guys with their fees mentioned, right? And let's find someone. Again, many might. This is going to be the next lesson that I will mention later, but you're going to scroll down. Like, I'm not going to scroll here. Ideally, normally, the person you're looking for. So you just search them, but you'd be surprised. Like, let's search Brian Tracy, for example. Brian Tracy, speaker booking. Many people should know Brian Tracy. He's like one of the most successful business coaches out there, and his fee is, I think, um, it's not mentioned here. Well, it's his official website. Let's look at another one. I think it was mentioned. Big Celebrity Talent International. But like he charges 10 to 30,000 or 10 to 25,000. Yeah, 25 to 39. Sometimes it's like it's not a lot. And this is bloody Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is like one of the most influential business coaches out there. So you get the point. If it's doing virtually, they would charge less. But there's also the travel and accommodation and stuff like that. But seriously, you can find some pretty decent ones. And then many people, like if it's in a business space, many older folks would come to see somebody like that. But they wouldn't show up to see and this brings me to the next point, where some people would charge a lot of money, but that doesn't mean that that person also has the audience. So an actor might charge 3 million, but you might get better results from Brian Tracy at 25K than the actor who, or Gary Vee at 250K, than whatever actor who's charging millions. And again, this is large scale. This is just for those of you who are not even thinking about this, don't worry. But this, maybe, one day, hopefully you guys can take some notes from this and lead up to there, eventually be on stages and change lives and impact millions. And hopefully I was able to provide you some foundational conceptual knowledge to help you visualize how it plays out to be. But so when you're booking, look at their audience engagement and look at their audience demographics as well. So for example, I can pick a cricketer or a sports personality, and they might have a lot of they who might have 15 million followers, but like out of those 15 million, 10 million are from Asian countries or like from overseas. Uh, and the local engagement isn't that much. And he might command a higher booking fee, but when he comes in, he can't pull in the audience. So, well, we feel generally, if it's somebody known in your niche, in your audience, that's what you want to go for. And otherwise, you might be able to get one of those guys for branding purposes. And if your marketing is solid and you're really good at marketing, you don't even need a headliner. But for most of you, if that's not the case, then this strategy works well. And now moving on to the next point, which is for getting successful or more well-established and known headliners, is that I already covered this one. Yeah, this is one of the cool tips. So let's share my screen and search. So these are two events that I have seen recently. First one is Dreamfest. Right, this is just an example. So this is Dreamfest. It's being done locally here in Gold Coast where I'm based. And Dan Martell, who's somebody who's more well known, is and again, this is just public stuff. I'm using it as an example here. But where's the key highlight speaker? Oh yeah, so this guy, Dan Martell. Dan Martell is appearing virtually. Like they should say this here. And Dan is probably the biggest one who has yeah. So meet your amazing speakers. It doesn't say it's virtual, but I'm pretty sure he's virtual. Interesting. It doesn't mention that it's virtual, but like on ads and everywhere else, he's probably virtual. I don't think he's traveling. If he is, then there would have been platinum tickets with the option to take a one-on-one photo with Dan Martel, which isn't the case here. Yeah, there's no photos, one-on-one meet and greet with, again, who cares? Doesn't really matter. Oh, the guy did another thing, streaming virtual while in person and still making sales. Like, why not? All the other rest of the cities that can't come in person, you can stream it in virtual as well. So that's one thing. The second one is besides Dreamfest was they had this RECA something which brought in Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO, who was virtual. So the reason why this works is many of these really successful people might have hundreds of thousands for in-person travel and booking, and it's really costly. But you can absolutely bring them in virtually for like half the price or even less than that. And then when you're marketing, people might still come because they're still virtually live teaching you and giving you value. So if the costs balance out and you really want the branding, this might be a pretty decent thing to do. And if you're also live streaming it virtual and doing in person at the same time, it's like win-win, right? Which is why recently more and more people that are doing uh, like 10x GrowthCon was being streamed virtual while also being done in person. I think they also tested that with Phil Hacker Live, I'm not sure. But yeah, all these big events are doing both because they capture a lot of audience from the virtual side that they can sell, which is like just free because they just need to set up the streaming and they're doing everything else anyway, so they might as well do that. But yeah, so this covers the headliner side. Now let's come to the sales speaker. These are the guys, like ideally you might be one of the sales speakers who's going to be providing and selling your own service and your own offers. But besides you, there might also be like other sales speakers that you might want to get. Now, this is the area where most events mess up and they lose their quality and the reviews and everything else. And as a matter of fact, this is where the term sales festival was coined because many people just bring in like 4 or 5 sales speakers. So it's like sales speaker after sales speaker after sales speaker. And it alienates the audience, and people are so conditioned by that, they only show up at the end because they know that these events have the main headliner at the end of the day. And then everyone else, so people come at the end, which is why they don't reveal the dates beforehand or the timing when the main person would come. And if someone asks, they would just divert the questions. So, anyways, picking a sales speaker, pick somebody who has integrity and not just closing rate. The, I know people, you're free to do what you want, and if your priority is making money, collecting cash upfront, which most people do, you might just compromise on the quality and just pick somebody who might not be the right fit but might collect more cash up front, like somebody who's selling crypto or something else like that. But most people think that way and they make a mistake because in the back end, that person becomes a nightmare for fulfillment. It lowers your reputation and like they damage the sales of other sales speakers too because they alienate the audience. Generally, if you're the person who is selling first, you should be fine. If you have 3 sales speakers, let's assume that still feels a bit much, but let's say you have 3 sales speakers. Um, yeah, generally stick to do a good job by doing one-on-one sales and post-event sales and qualifying the right audiences and having better sales systems in place, and you wouldn't need a sales speaker. The other sales mechanisms would make up for that. But let's say you have to pick one. Most sales speakers would travel, like if you're covering the travel costs and accommodation, they would come for free because you guys generally have a profit share. And if you have a large enough audience, like 200, 300 people, and they're in the business space or a tailored space, most of the sales speakers in that industry would just come in and sell at your event at no cost because they get a cut from it too. So they're getting clients that they can ascend the value ladder. And it's much cheaper to sell at somebody else's events than run a whole event yourself. And so much stuff can go wrong. So many just do sales speaking professionally. Um, and if you want to find out who they are, just walk around, ask your peers about events they've been to, and they would mention the people who sold there. And you can pick the one who sounded better and had those good reviews, honestly. Or you can look at these big organizations that are in most countries that do business conferences or self-help events like Success Resources or these guys, and you would then see their events and look at the list of speakers. And you'd be able to Google them and find out the ones that sell their services and coaching offers. Right. I'm not gonna name any because that might create bias and that might, again, I'm not sure if they're good today, they might be worse off in the future. But keep that thing in mind. But what you also want to look at is their refund rates. And ideally, asking other organizers who have worked with them, if you can, is the best thing. I won't recommend bringing in beginners because they might not be able to sell, or your friend who might not be able to sell. So even at the worst case, you're bringing somebody who is inexperienced, bring someone who had sold a few times, even if they've done it virtually, and practice the hell out of them and get them to follow the scripts and everything that I mentioned earlier, and build a offer with integrity and the style with integrity, and you won't alienate the audience. Um, and then the other thing you could do is if you still want to maximize revenue, is get a percentage of their upsells. So most of these guys, these sales speakers, they're selling into an offer. or a workshop. At the workshop, they'll sell something else. It's fairly common in the industry to get 50% of everything. All right. So if you're able to bake that into the contract, or even get like 30, 40%, you won't have to rely on bringing in more sales speakers to compensate for the front end cash because you make more money on the back end. And if you want to be more careful, because this has happened as well many times, at whatever workshop they're conducting that they sold at your event, in which they will sell again, send your team there to note down the sales coming in. And the better thing to do would be to the people who bought that from your event, get them to do transactions onto your account. And generally, this is the other thing. You collect all the cash that is sold at the event. Like don't, they don't, like you collect the payments and then you process refunds and all that stuff and pay them in like 20, 30 days once you've cleared all of those things. That's pretty standard. That's pretty normal. But what this ensures is that it keeps you protected. Because otherwise, if that person collects all the money and now they need to give you a cut, so you're chasing them, and then all the refunds, they are contacting you because you were the event organizer, right? And again, sometimes refunds happen, like it's normal. I'm not saying that in the sense that you're gonna get, or if it's like accepting that, but it's like you will get a few people who might not be the right fit, who might have bought it in the heat of the moment and regretted it later, or whatever guarantees you might have. But yeah, a few words of wisdom when it comes to picking sales speakers. The other word of wisdom with that is have back end profits. Yeah, that should be it. Now, moving on to the final category, which is MCs and general speakers. The MC is one of the most important roles because this person is going to set up the tone and the energy for the event, right? Ideally, like if a local stand-up comedian or people like that do a great job, otherwise pick somebody who has that energy and that ability to engage the audience and create an impact. I keep saying that, but more like engage them and get them to energize when the room is dead, or get them to frame the next speaker in a stronger fashion and stuff like that. Um, Select based on that. Again, you generally can't go wrong. You don't need to hire somebody high end. If you're getting one of your team members to do it again, get them to practice beforehand, uh, and ensure that they're kind of used to it. Quite often you will see MCs at like some other business conferences and you can just inquire them, or other conferences that are in line with whatever large scale event you're doing. These are for large scale ones, all right? These advice and tips. If you're doing a smaller scale, literally you can conduct the whole thing with like 2, 3 team members and it will be fine. Or maybe one main headliner, and that happens too often. So you can forget everything else. But if you're doing like big ones, like 500 people or more, then this stuff is helpful. And if you're getting general speakers in, like people who are just coming in who want to speak, there are two ways of doing this. And this could work to your advantage, but you could also get attractive people. The thing is, you might just ask local celebrities, hey, we'd like to interview at our event. Um, And it's for this, and use moral authority there, where like our goal is to help entrepreneurs and all of these things. So I was wondering if you might have some free time. You can come in, we'd like to interview you. Uh, all the media, everything, accommodation, everything else is on us. And there will be a lot of these people that would love to hear your story or something like that or whatever, and many might say yes over there. Like again, they would do it for free. Honestly, many people want the branding and the status that comes with it. So you can pretty much get like many local celebrities, or like depending on the size of the event, just like that. Or people from your team or even general audiences. Like so many speakers do free gigs, but this way, like if you frame it up, like you don't need to always do have them do a keynote. You can just interview the person. And it's much easier to get people to sign up for interviews than it does for them doing keynotes, right? Other thing, besides that, you can sell stage slots as well. There are business owners, consultants out there that, or people out there who want that branding from stage, or who want that authority. And if you have a large audience, instead of them running a whole event themselves, you can just bring them in as a sponsor. So run ads for, we're looking for sponsors, and the platinum sponsor gets interviewed on stage or gets to speak for 20 minutes, and you can set rules that you can't sell anything and stuff like that. we can potentially add your QR code. Be very careful. Again, generally just normal and charge them like some normal fee, like 5 grand or 10 grand or something, or even lower depending on the amount of time you're giving them. Um, you will literally, that would just cover the cost of the event. Like pretty not often mentioned strategy, but crushes it. Uh, Besides that, getting more higher end sponsors is also like a simple strategy of reaching out and running paid ads and having a funnel for it. I'll try to cover that in, well, heck, I'll just cover that right now. You email your like same thing, lead gen, lead nurture sales, and all 4 ways of lead gen, paid ads, affiliates, warm and cold outreach, stuff like that works well. Same strategy for getting people who can invest as well. Um, you can manually reach out to brands and organizations and make a list of them and then get a VA to text all of them and see if they would be interested in sponsoring. Reach out to 1,000 people, you'll find your sponsor. They can reach out on LinkedIn or all these other events and send them messages about the event and what is going to happen and the audience size. And what the exchange for the sponsorship would look like. You can have a sponsor section at the event ticketing place where you could say there'll be 500 people. You can have your stand or you can do whatever your sponsorship tires are. And yeah, that's about it. Works pretty well. Uh, Hopefully this gives you guys like some advanced knowledge about having sponsors, having MCs, getting speakers, and selecting the venue. And in the second video now, I'm gonna talk more about in depth about how you run the event. All right, and I'll see you guys in the next video.